Halloween is just around the corner, meaning lots of DMs are buying candy, grabbing their best costumes, and preparing a Halloween one-shot. Running a creepy adventure has some challenges beyond just a regular one-shot, so to help you get the vibe just right for that Halloween-themed game, here are a couple tips as well as some creepy encounters that you can use when you're preparing that one-shot. Without further ado, let's get started. If you're a fan of horror movies, then you've probably seen your fair share of scary movies that weren't really scary at all. Horror is so subjective. What makes people scared differs between people, and it's just difficult to get people to be actually terrified, even when you have visuals and sound to go along with things. Now, think about how hard it would be to get people to actually be horrified by what's going on around the table when you're playing a game with your friends. It is really hard to do horror well when it comes to D&D and other tabletop games. Instead, I suggest instead of going for outright scary, try to make your games creepy or unsettling. It's easier to make people feel uneasy with your descriptions of shadowy environments, empty graveyards, and strange, weird NPCs. Getting those tense moments that are creepy but not outright scary is going to be a lot easier to strive for than trying to make your game like a scary movie. On the flip side of that, Halloween also has a bit of a sillier tone to it. Things like goblins and ghouls and plastic vampire teeth. Your game doesn't have to be scary to be Halloween themed. You can lean into spookier scenarios like haunted houses or fighting pumpkins and chatting with skeletons. No matter what direction you take, you can have a really great and fun Halloween themed one shot without it being scary and causing your players to shriek in fear. All that said, if you do still want to try and make your game scary, be sure that you're still respecting everyone's boundaries. Whether you were set in session 0 or you just know what really affects your friends, getting a cheap scare is not worth making people truly uncomfortable and causing problems at your table. If you know one of your players is deathly afraid of spiders, for example, don't throw a bunch in there just to get a reaction. It is still a game after all. You're all there to have fun, and you do not want to cross a line that shouldn't be crossed. So make sure, no matter how horrified you want your players to be, you're still respecting everyone's boundaries. Halloween is all about dressing up and getting to be someone new. And one of the realities of D&D is that very few players spend a lot of time at level 1 or level 20. A lot of the time, DMs want to skip level 1 entirely and get to the better, more fun abilities that their players have. And a lot of games just end before they ever reach level 20, and most DMs don't really want to run high-level play for that long. But that's the thing about a Halloween one-shot, is that you're only playing one game, and so you can have a lot of fun letting your players experience gameplay they normally wouldn't by setting it at either level 1 or level 20. If you give them the max level for their characters, then that unlocks a lot of the really cool, iconic fiends, undead, and aberrations that can challenge your players and lead to a really creepy, intense one-shot. On the flip side of that, if you have them at level 1, then encounters feel deadly and tense, like a slasher movie might. And you have the added bonus of letting a lot of classic Halloween monsters, like skeletons, zombies, and werewolves, be real threats to your players rather than just set dressing. You can have fun playing at any level, but strongly consider either having your players be at level 1 or level 20 to really make the Halloween one-shot memorable. Trick-or-treating is a Halloween tradition, but in real life you get a lot more treats than tricks. For a Halloween one-shot though, why not offer your players both? The DM's guide is full of magic items that have powerful effects and devastating drawbacks. Take the sword Black Razor, for example, a +3 sword that gives the user temporary HP as it harvests souls. The perfect tool for your party fighter to, say, take on the Demon Lord Orcus, until they try to hit one of Orcus's undead minions and end up hurting themselves and healing that undead creature. Items that have that give and take really kind of embody the spirit of Halloween and that trick-or-treating mentality. And even if they're too strong or chaotic to use in a full campaign, for a one-shot, they're kind of perfect. One of my favorites to throw at my players during our Halloween one-shots is the Deck of Many Things. It can do all kinds of things, from granting wishes to summoning an avatar of death to fight them, to literally banishing them to the void. High risk, high reward items are going to make your Halloween one-shot even more exciting and really give them that trick-or-treating Halloween feel. With those tips in mind, here are a couple encounters and characters that I've used in past Halloween one-shots that can give you inspiration for your own games, starting with a creepy puzzle that I threw at my players once. Your party will arrive at an ancient graveyard, the headstones long since overgrown and faded. There are 4, however, where you can still make out the words across them, which are actually glowing with a slight green hum to them. Those words talk about the death of those buried here, 4 particularly gruesome deaths. One severed hand, a lost ear, a mangled foot, and a plucked eye. If your players try to dig up those grave sites, they'll find the dirt empty. No bodies are buried here. To solve the puzzle, they're going to have to bury one of each of those body parts at the correct tombstone. Are they willing to sever their own limbs to get whatever treasure might be here? Now, if they're clever, they might try to dig up some of the other bodies and use those parts instead, which will cause the dead to begin to rise all around the graveyard and attack. You can choose which undead creatures best fit the levels of your party that you're running for this one shot. Once they have buried all of the correct body parts, either their own or the undead that they've now slain, one of the unmarked grave sites will open up and their prize will be waiting inside. Again, you can choose what item or treasure best fits your party, but make sure it's something that's worth the potential pain, and maybe something a little wicked too. As your players travel through whatever creepy forest or haunted wasteland that your one-shot is set in, they'll be approached by what looks like a beautiful carriage rolling on its own accord. As it gets closer, they'll realize that while there are no horses out front, there is a ghostly, spectral rider sitting at the front of the cart. Named Clarence, they will jovially invite your players inside, telling them that for a little bit of coin and some good conversation, they'll take them wherever your players need to go. Now your players have to choose. Do they want to take up this ghost on their offer or decline? If they do accept, then the doors will fly open, and the first person to get inside will realize that while the interior looks lush and welcoming, it's actually really wet and sticky. And if they decline, then they'll watch as Clarence's demeanor shifts, becoming meaner and angrier, and that seat in the carriage will begin to lift up and extend. Eyes will pop up all along the sides of the cart, teeth will extend from the edges of the doorway, and they'll realize that this carriage is actually a giant mimic, and it wants to feed. Whether a player is in there or not, it'll try to grab and lash out at them, either closing the door on somebody inside or using that seat like a pseudopod to try and ensnare one of the players. At this point, you can probably roll initiative, and for the cart, you can either just beef up a regular mimic stats, or if you have Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, you can use the Horde Mimic stat block that's in that book. Either way, you can run this as combat, or because Clarence and his cart are more interested in just getting a meal and getting out of there, you could also run this as a skills challenge or a chase. Either way, whether your party's able to save anybody caught inside, or one of them ends up as an unsuspecting meal, it might be a little while before your players trust public transit again. As your players journey on, they'll hear a tiny voice calling out to them. Those with higher passive perception will see what looks like a black cat trapped in some kind of predicament. Stuck in a tree or a spider's web, maybe trapped in a closet. You can tailor it to whatever the setting is for your one-shot. This cat's name is Salem, and able to speak common, they will beg the players to free them from wherever they're stuck. If your players comply, Salem will thank them and insist that he stick around with the party for his own safety. He might be able to offer them clues to the setting or whatever task they're trying to complete. So Salem should be pretty useful to the party if they let him stay. Until combat starts, that is. Salem is not a fighter, and the moment initiative is rolled, he will go hide. But your players will discover something weird happening. Any 20s that they roll will instead become 1s on their attacks and their saving throws. Salem is a black cat after all, and that bad luck extends to your players. But Salem doesn't want to leave, so it'll be up to them to either drive him off, cure whatever bad luck curse is on him, or kill the cat. If they do kill Salem, then with his dying breath, he will pass the curse on to whatever player slew him. And then all of their 20s will now become 1s, even outside of combat, unless they can get that curse removed. Whether they let him stick around or drive him off, Salem will be an adorable but annoying pain in your players' sides. Hiding within their wooden shack, your players come across an old wizened hag. She has no quarrel with the party and instead offers to aid them on their travels in the form of a set of silver or gold coins, one for each of the party, that she says can be used to reverse their fortunes. Of course, no hag's deal comes without consequences. The way these coins work is that they can be used to reverse the result of one d20 roll, so they could turn a miss into a hit or a failure into a success, but they are not guaranteed to work. When your player wants to activate it, they have to flip the coin, call it in the air, and if they get it right, then it succeeds. Whatever dice roll they wanted reversed becomes a success. But if they fail, that's when they learn the true consequences of the deal they've made. Now, I'll leave exactly what happens up to you, but a couple of ideas could be, if they use it for a saving throw, maybe they now take double damage on a failure. Or perhaps they end up cursed, maybe taking -2 or -3 to all of their rolls until they can get that curse removed. Whatever it ends up being, if your players are lucky, they'll never have to learn what that effect is. But if they're not, they'll see exactly what happens when a hag comes to collect on their deal. No matter what tricks and treats you throw at your players, I hope your Halloween one-shots are fun, creepy, and everything in between. Thank you so much for watching the video, and if you got some ideas or inspiration from your own one-shot from it, or your campaigns in general, I'd love to hear about it in the comments, and I always appreciate a like. If you did enjoy the video, consider subscribing to the Bard's College. I make videos about D&D, DMing, and all kinds of things that you can use in your own games. But for now, good luck, and remember, crit your players.